We've met before, haven't we? How'd you do that? Give me back my phone.
Within the last 30 years, David Lynch has established himself as one of American cinema's original voices. With his unconventional way of storytelling, Lynch has demonstrated a prolific body of work that few filmmakers dare to reach. Throughout the years, many critics have often classified his films as psychological horror. Although true on a superficial level, David Lynch's films have never adhered to a single genre, but oftentimes have overlapped. What makes horror in David Lynch's movies intrinsically fascinating is that they don't fall to the conventional boogeyman. More often than not, Lynch manifests the horror from within his protagonists. Like a cunning reporter, Lynch deciphers people's worst fears and anxieties and demonstrates them to an audience in a captivating way. In order to get a brief understanding of the psychological horror in David Lynch's films, I will briefly examine his work through its thematic elements, the setting, cinematography, and its editing. Many times in the modern horror genre, a woman is often objectified, sexualized, and massacred, which may lead one to believe the horror genre is a misogynistic one. Lynch toys with this notion predominantly in all of his movies, sometimes falling to convention, where the woman is, in fact, victimized, and sometimes smashing it, where the woman is empowered and has total control over her surroundings and the men in it. Though, that being said, many critics have chastised Lynch for being misogynistic in his movies, and a lot of the times, women are objects, are sexualized, and abused. Here in Blue Velvet, Dennis Hopper's character batters Isabella Rossellini as a sort of sadistic game for his own pleasure. In this film, Rossellini embodies the woman in peril. Women aren't always victimized. Sometimes they are given the role of seductress. Take for instance this scene from Lost Highway, where a mechanic named Pete becomes entranced with the gangster's wife. Notice the slow motion as the two eyes connect with one another. As we advance later into the story, she later persuades Pete to lie, steal, and even murder for her own benefit. Talk about love at first sight. Going back to the horror element, there is no traditional boogeyman. Lynch loves to use simple objects like fire, curtains, and lamps, to name a few, because these objects often bring horrid memories from the character's past. Sometimes he will display terror in safe institutions like family.
Oh, these hands are filthy. Look. There's dirt way under this fingernail.
In Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me, Laura Palmer, played by Cheryl Lee, is terrorized by her own father who feels incestuous urges for her.
Laura did not wash her hands before dinner. Oh, look at
Lastly, Lynch loves splitting his protagonists in two, sometimes even adding doppelgangers. Our main characters will almost always have an undiscovered past we later uncover, or sometimes even lead double lives. The reason being is that many times these suppressed memories come back and haunt our main characters in the form of an alternate universe. Lynch loves to express his films as hypothetical dreams, dreams being a huge, and I mean huge, focal point in his movies. It comes to a point where a viewer might even second guess whether he is watching reality or fiction. Setting. David Lynch loves to set his movies in small-town America, which effectively makes his movies more terrifying, as we find the stereotypes of small towns are often reversed. The small-town farmer is replaced by the local pimp, gangster, or peg-legged assassin, if you will. Lynch, being an admitted fan of film noir, will sometimes combine the small-town setting with the superficial glitz and glamour of a metropolitan city like Hollywood or Los Angeles. Incorporating two of these settings into one, conveys an odd and sometimes bizarre friction to our preconceived stereotypes of these places. A wonderful example is in the opening scene of Wild at Heart. This scene takes place at a fancy ball in a small town, but the characters, however, appear to be from a big city.
Marietta tells me you've been trying to fuck her in the toilets for the past 10 minutes.
Oh, man.
Well, you crazy fucking bad boy. Trying to fuck your girl's mama. Now tell me, how's that cute little cunt Lula feel about that? Hmm?
Uh-oh.
You know, Marietta just gave me this to kill you. And afterwards she said Lula was mine and all the way.
Shocking, huh? At first it might seem even comical, but Lynch enjoys toying with an audience's perception on movie stereotypes. Note the background jazzy music, and as soon as the violence hits, the heavy metal guitars chime in. Lynch originally had aspirations to be a painter. It comes to as no surprise that his films are often imitating an artist's palette. Lynch loves to photograph his subjects like expressionistic paintings, oftentimes painting them in a controlled environment such as colored rooms, draped curtains, and blue skies.
She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet was the night.
Lynch also makes use of symmetry in his movies.
Used to be she smoked bass.
He also likes to shoot his films with a wide depth of field as to demonstrate action in the background and foreground simultaneously. Lynch's films also incorporate elements of film noir photography. Observe the accented lighting he uses here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Roque.
Her name is Camilla Rhodes. The director doesn't want her.
While lovingly treating his characters to beautiful widescreen shots, Lynch contrasts these wide angles with extreme close-ups of body parts, objects, and shots of nature. Putting attention to these objects often haunt the character throughout the film, and are repeatedly referred to throughout the plotline. Red. The color red plays a repetitive role in the look of Lynch's films. Red is commonly known as the color of romance or seduction. In his movies, it is utilized for that very purpose. On the other hand, red can negatively represent anger, frustration, and guilt. The latter example is innovatively portrayed in this scene by the actor's own doing. When Diane Ladd's character realizes she has sent a man to his own death, she paints her own face with red lipstick as a sort of cockeyed display of overbearing guilt.
Johnny, sweetheart, I want you to know something, sweetheart. I've done something so bad. Real bad.
Incorporating these last three categories into a feature film takes some rather eccentric editing. Lynch loves experimenting with his mise-en-scène by the way of editing. During heated or emotionally powerful scenes, Lynch will intentionally slow down his footage to a blur, almost recalling a Francis Bacon painting. Lynch admits to being a big fan of Bacon's work. In scenes of psychological dismay, Lynch will intentionally speed up scenes with super fast motions, giving the effect of eternal suffering. Lynch also utilizes the Soviet montage theory in his films by way of the Kuleshov effect. For example, in the opening scene of Blue Velvet, a man experiences a stroke, but the shot is subsequently juxtaposed with a shot of a hose tightening up.
Feeling the rapture grow.
Thus, almost as if the hose is imitating blood vessels unable to produce oxygen to the brain. The audience feels the pain more effectively through the hose than just watching the man fall. Lynch loves inserting these extreme close-ups of objects that create tension. These inserts often play some kind of role that advances the story in some way. For example, in a scene in Wild at Heart, a gangster decides to have someone killed. The assassin fulfilling the job requests $2 silver. He gets his wish as an extreme close-up of $2 silver is shown, representing death and murder coming to the protagonist's way. Through common thematic elements, carefully placed settings, and meticulous editing and cinematography, Lynch has exposed a side of America that is both disturbing and inherently fascinating. Lynch is a master storyteller that is not afraid to collect controversy and mix it with praise. As an artist, David Lynch is not afraid to challenge convention or the cliché. As of right now, Lynch has cemented himself as one of the most unique movie directors working today.